Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your service. Mr. Chairman, I do have some questions for the witnesses, but first I'd like to briefly address an overarching theme that has dominated this committee's dialogue since January. That theme is, of course, the critical importance of properly funding our armed forces. We have heard over and over from leaders from throughout the Defense Department about the devastating impacts that are accompanying sequestration. But I believe sequestration is part of a larger threat to our defense establishment and our national security. At a time of great fiscal pressures, we are seeing ever-mounting pressure to reduce defense spending below a level of acceptable risk. In short, we can expect to see, as never before, advocacy of a national security strategy that is budget and not strategy-driven. This committee is positioned to keep that from happening. So I'd like to take this opportunity to state my strong support and great appreciation for the ongoing efforts of Chairman McCain and Ranking Member Reed to stop that from happening and reduce the damage which is being caused by sequestration. With that, I have some questions for Secretary James and General Welsh about one program for which we must provide adequate funding, and that is the Long-Range Strike Bomber. General Welsh, the Air Force says that the Long-Range Strike Bomber is one of the Air Force's top modernization priorities. Today, the Air Force has 96, either 95 or 96 operational bombers. This is nearly half the number of bombers recommended by the 1993 bottom-up review to support operations in the post-Cold War era. During the Cold War, the Air Force's average ratio of fighters to bombers was about 5-to-1. This ratio is now 14-to-1, 14 fighters for every one bomber. Now, I'm not suggesting the need to cut more fighters, but rather, I think we ought to be talking about whether or not that original balance was appropriate. I'm concerned, however, that the Department of Defense may be contemplating making an unfavorable situation even worse by retiring more bombers before the long-range strike bomber is fielded in substantial numbers. My questions are these. If the Air Force is not given relief from the Budget Control Act, would you propose cuts to the current bomber force?
No, Senator, we're not.
Okay. Will the long-range strike bombers replace any of the current bombers, including the nuclear mission-capable B-2, or will they augment the current force?
The intent would be to replace the B-2 over time with a long-range strike bomber.
Beginning
in the mid-20s.
In the mid-20s. Some have pointed to stealth technologies as diminishing advantage. Even if this is true, would you think it necessary to make the air defense challenge as difficult as possible for our nation's enemies, and what other alternatives would we have?
Sir, stealth I've seen no technical data that says stealth as a way to break a kill chain is a diminishing value. It's about breaking any segment of the kill chain. There are sensors that can see any stealth platform, but passing the data they draw to sensors and weapons that can target you is a completely different problem for them, and stealth to this point clearly can disrupt that kill chain.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.